Thank you, Anna. Hi, everyone. So, I am Hanovi Schoonover, Training and Resource Coordinator for Redwood Consulting, and today we will be going over Not Caught in the Web, Advocacy, and Safety Planning Our Digital Lives. And joining me today is Rebecca Balog, who will be presenting this, and I will now turn it over to her.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. Again, my name is Rebecca Balog. I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I am Oglala Lakota Mohawk, and my father is full-blooded Romani Gypsy, born and raised in the Mid-Atlantic region. I'm in Pennsylvania. I've been working in the anti-violence, domestic violence, sexual assault, and many intersection specializations for 19 years. I'm going into my 20-year anniversary. And I've been working with youth for the last 10 years. So today we're going to talk about not getting caught in the web. And I'll touch on youth specific as well as the parallel experiences for adults. So I hope my animations are working in my PowerPoint today. There's a little bit of a delay. Okay. So our objectives, we're going to talk about what is digital life, what are the positive and negative impacts of social and digital media in our digital lives. Are there any legal protections? Are they the same as our regular life versus our digital life and identities? And how can domestic and sexual violence occur? And then what is our safety planning? So we're going to talk about all of these points. While developing the webinar, I want to acknowledge that everyone's in their own region, their own communities, as well as youth. Youth have a youth culture and digital culture. So I did my best to have a 101, not entry level, but something that's blanketed that can be useful for everyone, knowing that some of this is old news and you may have advanced experience in some of the topics while maybe not in others. So I'll briefly go through culture, intersecting with digital life, and abuse, and how digital access points can lead to a variety of other abuses. The experience that we're in, which is changing targets. And that means as soon as we have a handle on the most recent emerging issue when it comes to digital abuse, things are changing, and it's just constant flow and trying to keep up. And then that impacts the safety planning. And then lastly is how can we take action with all of these 5 points. Okay. So again, my name is Rebecca Balog. I'm really happy to be here with you all. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. At the end of the presentation, my telephone number and email are available if you'd like some more details or resources, or you see sources cited that you have interest in. Or if we talk about outreach and engagement with youth or adult advocates of youth, I'm available for any of those questions. And I'm just waiting for it to load. Okay, so of course we have to provide some statistics for those that are not familiar, or a refresher. This is from 2019, these statistics. So the difference between digital tribal life for youth and adults. There are so many common grounds, but there's a lot of differences as well. So for example, 2019, 90% of adults are online compared to only 52% of adults 10 years ago. 95% of teens have access to a smartphone, and 45% say they are online almost constantly. So with 90% of adults, digital abuse can be really prevalent, particularly in Native communities. So we talk about what are the legal protections. Many tribes don't yet have the technical or financial resources to add cybercrime into tribal law. And for urban communities and non-natives and allies, it's the same. It's that constantly changing digital environment. It makes it difficult to have legal protection. And for youth, digital life is a major way we know our Native kids are talking to each other and socializing. It's, I think, that way everywhere in every community. Digital abuse can be a problem for all kids, but it's even a bigger problem when you add the culturally specific angles of abuse, and I'll get into some of those later. And that refers to lateral oppression, spiritual abuse, smaller communities, different school systems, and community structure. Okay. So the next slide says abusive relationships and digital life. So again, some of this may be like you just know it because we're advocates and we're familiar with some of these problems, and some of them may be new topics. The information that I'm always learning from you. So of course, being an advocate, I hear from the field. I've done a lot of travel working with Native youth in their communities, and I'm always listening to them as leaders. The only way I could talk about youth and abuse is using my adult, my 20 years working in the field, but that doesn't even cast a shadow on the learning from youth themselves and the things that they inform us about. And I'll go into that a little later with the Take Action about how important youth voices are when we're doing our work as adults and advocating for them. So a couple tactics for abusive relationships with digital life. We know about cyberbullying. Cyberbullies like to be anonymous. I think everyone knows the term catfishing, when you fake being a different person online to trap others or snoop. That's a really big problem, unfortunately. Hidden youth harassment and embarrassment. That happens a lot in schools. These fake profiles can call out, make lies about each other, and I was in high school in the 90s, and I am so grateful I didn't have these experiences because I think the youth go through a completely different world of bullying. And then other impacts, the Native LGBTQ or Two-Spirit. I worked with a tribal university, and there was a really major incident of bullying and domestic violence, and there was a page set up to out our youth, a college student who had not shared that information or disclosed, and it was a very public outing scenario. So that is happening. Emotional and spiritual youth development, the barriers, the trauma from being bullied to such a degree of character assassination. Excuse the reference point there, but that's what it can feel like. Being stalked and tracked, the advanced loopholes of intervention and prevention. Again, we're chasing the target. Trickery, exclusion, teen dating, digital silos. There's entrapment, the cultural and identity attacks, blood quantum, you're not from here, you're family has a different faith or practice than ours, and it just goes into really big campaigns, I think is a good word for it, a bullying campaign, where you rally the posse and get as many people on your team, and then they share it with more people, and it's exponentially dangerous to developing youth and their confidence and self-esteem. Lateral oppression is huge. A non-consensual environment, private text, photos, all of that, once it's sent, it can be shared, and then that becomes another tool for youth to abuse or bully other youth. This one, this has no age limit, putting on blast. I think everyone knows that. If you don't, it means a social media campaign, whether it's truth or fabricated. Putting someone on blast is to do harm, rallying the troops, rallying the posse, get as many people on board to do harm. And these endangerments, much like domestic violence and sexual assault, the intersection, isms, and bullying endanger the development and trauma that can last a lifetime. And we know the hardships of surviving families or our youth suicide, which is really hard to talk about because they're, a colleague and friend of mine just lost a child to teen suicide. So all of this is coming from the energy that we have to listen to our youth and understand the world that they're in by working with them. So on the other side, we have adult survivors that are in no way protected from cybercrime and digital life and abuse. And some of these are, again, being attacked anonymously. Correct? Those difficult legal protections. It is not easy to call for support or seek justice when some of the crimes are digital. What goes along with that, again, very hard to prosecute, is identity fraud. That happens in domestic violence, in the power and control aspect of the wheel. Perpetuated isolation, when it is mandatory that a partner regulates and monitors social media accounts. Community retaliation is a big one. A survivor seeks help and the whole family and community goes against that person. And again, with the media campaigns that person is a liar. And some of this may be old news. Your advocates, you've been working in the field, you may know this. But I just want to be comprehensive. The cyberbullying, pretty much everything on the side of the youth fits in here as well. There's advances in tracking your person and your body. This is not an entry-level presentation, but light touches and comprehensive. But going into the technologies used today for tracking could be a whole PowerPoint. So cultural and spiritual abuse. Oddly, the digital world is getting a tighter knit in that basket together of abuse and how digital crimes can be impacted. We know about economic abuse, threats to employment, how that can be done. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, conveniently giving information to an employer to impede their job, their ability to make money. That goes right alongside medical services, creating barriers. Slander. I actually wrote that. Rallying the troops or rallying the group or posse. For mass trolling. For those that don't know, trolling just means you're secretly stalking and gathering information and intel by obsessively watching someone's social media account. Disconnection, and again, all of the lateral oppression that we experience in our communities. My mentor calls that crabs in a bucket mentality. And social media just happens to be a brilliant way to achieve doing that harm to another. It's awful. So these are the things that we want to go into a little bit deeper. I'm just waiting for my screen to load. Okay. So abusers using native culture and digital connections, or connections with large groups of people online, within the community, within our movement. So that has happened. This movement can be very violent. For people that have never met each other but have a digital community. These are some examples. So nepotism and retaliation in mass numbers. Mass numbers. I'll touch on this very lightly, but just to give an idea, in the world of video bloggers and digital communities, which means a presenter or influencer can have 1 to 8 million followers. And that mass retaliation means an individual speaks on YouTube. They may talk about makeup. There's a candle community where people just talk about candles all day. It can be automotive, mechanic, gamers, fashion, tribal sovereignty, domestic violence. Well, there's a million channels for a million content topics. And an influencer could say, I'm going to use my own name. I really dislike Rebecca Balog. I heard she just whatever. And 8 million people would go and attack that person who just had whatever negative thing said about them. And I've witnessed this, and that does include commentary, go kill yourself. I hope you get sexually assaulted. Other words for that, obviously. And these are perfect strangers. And this can happen to our youth. If you make a comment that disagrees with the influencer's community, your child or us as adults can also be attacked, and then there's a whole side campaign. So it's pretty rugged. But yeah, you could get 8 million death threats or mean-spirited comments, and people have also lots of time on their hands and will find your family telephone numbers and start calling your family. I haven't experienced this, but I know people that have. So when I say mass numbers, that's a huge thing. Okay, some other commentary. She's or he's not, they aren't even from here. We can make them leave the rest. The abuser may live in a community, their partner may be moved, there's that nepotism, that retaliation, they're not from here. Digital campaigns to really try to push people out for speaking against their abuser. Seen that happen. Many people going to Rapid because they've been afraid to stay. This one is another big item. Some people may know, some people may not. I have proof. I have proof that Rebecca did or said whatever is the insult of the day. And this could happen to you as an advocate, to our children, and in domestic violence. Falsifying. These are called receipts. I wrote e-receipts and e-evidence. The slang is, I have receipts on you. And that what is still used, you can go on Twitter and I can post a picture of my nemesis doing something horrible or saying something horrible and post it so I can rally my people to do the mass retaliation, and this can happen at a school level. And the word receipt has changed quite a bit. The reality is you can screenshot anything on Twitter or Insta or anywhere. You can grab Snapchat videos or TikTok, Facebook, and say, look, I have proof. But the educational piece is that changing target. There are apps. You can spend $500 if you'd like, and you can hire a troll farm to attack someone. $500 could get you, I don't know what the numbers are, I haven't obviously done it, but I guess 1,000 hate comments you can attack someone with. You just have to put money behind it. There are oodles of apps, paid or free, where you can make a fake tweet. Looks legit. You can make fake text messages, and the technology is advancing. Now, this isn't going to be available or tangible to the public anytime soon, but it is for really wealthy folk that have tens of thousands fake videos with audio and moving video, someone saying something that they're not saying, like it's a real true-to-life looking animation. And that's already being perfected, and they've already have examples of this, so that's just really expensive. But on a base level, a 16-year-old could decide to use digital apps to create a complete fake narrative and have quote-unquote receipts to prove it to the posse that they're rallying, the community, to retaliate. And those are not very expensive, and they're very easy to do. So there is just a little background on what receipts mean, and if you see it with your own eyes, does not mean that it's real. That's a big one. So the lateral oppression, they're not even Indian. They have not enough blood quantum, or they're not of the space, or I'm not going to say examples because I don't want to perpetuate that, but the blood quantum debate, the federal recognition debate, the faith or practice is another debate. Anything that can be used to belittle and cause harm. And under any topic, we all know the wheel of domestic violence. They're all there. Another one, I'm a spiritual leader. You can't go against me. If you go against me, you'll go against the entire altar. Everyone will attack you back. All of those, really fearful tactics that are used when it's already an emotional experience. Picture while you're down. Okay. 11. Okay, I'm not sure what happened to the animation, but some of these, here we go. So results of this for adults and youth are the same. The impacts are feeling intimidated. You're already experiencing violence, whether it's physical or not. It's very difficult. I am a survivor. So I have held that feeling myself. Depression, we know the impacts of that. Being a youth in today with these additional layers of abuse tactics that goes into complete character destruction, under the pressures of everyday life, being a youth in 2019, depression is huge, and of course anxiety. And then the worst, suicide is of course an impact. that I wish we could just never, ever have a youth feel that they're alone. Self-harm, the feeling of isolation and coercion. When I was a kid, I think that was called peer pressure, that the digital landscape that our youth and adults are going through, coercion is so much bigger than peer pressure, so much bigger. And these are really important to pay attention to. As advocates, we're always learning, and we're hearing and we see emerging issues, and we're listening to what's happening in this community. And it's not happening in that community over there, but somehow we're borrowing and sharing, crossing our tribal communities and the city and out in the plains and up in the Arctic Circle. The experiences in the Arctic Circle, the stories that I was told was, it had some differences, but it had a lot of similarities to Baltimore City. So it's about that information sharing, because in the digital world, there are no distances. The community is put together in that space, so it's a shared space. And that's a really great learning opportunity for adults to talk to kids and bring together roundtables from far and wide to really make sure we're not leaving any youth behind or unseen. Same thing with youth, or adults rather. That communication and building allies within and across their own communities is so useful. I'm just waiting for the page to load. Okay, so digital life, abuse, and different circles. A lot different. So again, there's changing targets. We're trying to focus our view on the issue at hand, and adults have a different hangout space than kids do. And I laugh, and we had some jokes, but Facebook is for old people. Facebook are for the rents, the aunties, the uncles, the grandparents, and the neighbors and the teachers. That's not to say that there's no youth present, because obviously there are, but it's considered like mom and dad are there. I have to have AP English. I have to keep it a certain way, and then I can go to Insta and have a different way to hang out with my own age group, or Snapchat. So Pinterest, Google Hangouts, Skype, I don't even know why I put that on there, it's so old. Dropbox, you know, that adults have quite a different environment and a totally different language, and I'm going to go into that next. And I don't want to go too deep because I want this to be a comprehensive and light touch on topic, but there's just certain examples that I think will hit home, that the youth culture, digital and non, is its own culture with its own language. And our adult spaces, although they intersect, are not exactly the same. So I have here adult-free zone. I even talk to my boys. I have 2 teenagers, and I have goddaughters and nieces and nephews, and I love them all, and I just learned so much from them, and they have no qualms by saying, no, I don't want you to comment on my Insta. So I don't, because that's their zone. But the language, I think, is really helpful for adults to know. Because if you're reading something, or you see something, or you hear something, and you don't speak that language, you are missing opportunities to identify red flags. And as soon as I say these, there's going to be something new, because those moving targets are always advancing. Same thing, our laptops, our cell phones. As soon as you have the coolest one and the newest one and you're feeling confident, next month the next phone comes out with it, you know, it's technology, it keeps on going, as does youth culture and technology. So safety planning, mind, body, spirit, and community. Domestic violence and sexual assault can lead to extreme trauma. Again, I am a survivor, and I do come from that experience, and I bring that when I work with either youth or adults. Adding a digital abuse exacerbates the trauma. It brings something that can be very private when you're experiencing sexual assault or domestic violence, whether it's physical or non. That can be a very private experience, but the digital piece brings that to a mass public. And it's awful and shameful that behind masks and fake profile pics, people will tell you to harm yourself and that you're worth nothing. This has not happened to me, but doctored photographs. Well, this did happen to me. I had someone forge a powwow flyer and spell my tribe's name wrong. And people just doctor things to attack. I thought that was really creative. But not to be funny, but people will use any opportunity with their time to do you harm. And with domestic violence, there is that power and control can really go to levels that we're not prepared for, even more so than the abuse. That identity theft, that is so incredibly hard to undo. And if you're a parent and you're trying to take care of your family, and everywhere, every angle that you go with your paycheck, your taxes, your credit, getting a cell phone, getting your lights on, all of the impact, your bank card, all of that can be impacted, and it takes someone the time to learn the loopholes in the digital abuse process and does harm that can just exacerbate the trauma in itself. So the language that I was talking about earlier, doxing, canceled, scan, noob, smurf, troll, harvest, and receipt. So this is just some examples. Not every one of our kids speaks this language. Maybe some yes, some no. If they're gamers, video gamers have their own community language. If they're makeup influencer followers, there's a whole language there. In our movement, we speak alphabet soup, so we speak in acronyms all the time. So obviously there's different languages for whatever content community that you're in. But in general, I'll give some examples. Doxing means gathering documentation. It's real easy to do. An example, there was a female hating another female. And this was not me, but I did witness it. Went back like years and years and found the most inappropriate tweet that could be said, and the girl was a lot younger, and rebroadcasted that. And then, of course, she was attacked for the content of that tweet. Canceled means I'm going to cancel you. I'm going to end your social life altogether, and I'm going to retaliate en masse with as many followers as I can. And, of course, that goes right into the school system, goes into the hallways in the classroom. Stan, you're a big fan. Noob is newbie. You're the new kid, the new person in the room. You're new to the group altogether. Smurfing is doxing you're gathering documentation so you can fake their persona. So you can appear to be not as, how do I want to put this? You could be incredibly smart with technology, but you act like you don't know anything. So you gather documentation. It's intimidation and trickery. It's used in the gaming community a lot, but it's also used in domestic violence. You act like you don't know what you know to gain more intel or more information. To troll is basically stalking, online stalking someone's page or text messages. People control your phone. Harvesting is a kind of like doxing. If you're harvesting, you're screenshotting evidence, and that evidence is called receipts. But I hope through this presentation everyone's aware that not all receipts or not all evidence is authentic, because it's very easy to go to your app store and create fake text messages, phone call logs, tweets, Snapchat. You can't cut the video, but you can fake everything. You can fake likes. A lot of money is invested in doing harm, unfortunately. So we have a lot of work to do. So a lot of this language isn't meant for adults. It's meant for, or is meant for a certain community. So again, working with youth in your community, meeting with them. In the youth work that I have done, I'm a really big advocate for a good advocacy with youth. And this sounds kind of like a pageant answer, and it's been said a lot, but I fully buy into it. We should never be speaking to youth, speaking at them. Of course, elders have their space to have that conversation. But when we're problem solving and working on outreach and engagement, we should almost never be in a planning process without youth present. And that mirrors exactly to have a movement about life and safety for Native people without Natives present. It's that same equity of investment. Working with the youth, they're like, watch out for this word, or this is what this means, or maybe slang has come up just in your community. And it's not in New York City, it's not down in Seminole, it's not down in Southern California or any other tribe, it's just to where you are. It's not about knowing all of, the youth slang or being too involved and not giving them their privacy or their own culture. But youth will say, hey, this means they could hurt themselves, or this means they're going to be posting a sexting pic, or this means that happened without consent. It's the youth know their culture, so bringing their voice to the table is really important. So lastly, some of youth may be seen, and other times it's not. Or you read that text, or you saw a Twitter post. You just didn't know what it meant because they're speaking a different language. Safety plan. So talk and share, create safe spaces. And more statistics, 1 in 10 teens will inform a parent or trusted adult of their abuse, their bullying, their sexual assault, emotional abuse, spiritual abuse. That's a 1 in 10. So creating those spaces and having those conversations, whether it's in a group or one-on-one, are the most valuable ways to prevent suicide and that isolation and anxiety and depression, and also intervene if there's an online group of 500,000 people attacking your kids, right? If being able to open that door to make sure every youth has more than one intent. We definitely have to do better than that. And the only way to create safe spaces is to include youth. Barriers to legal help. Educate the community and all ages on simple things like sexting. Once you hit send, it is forever. It is forever and will never go away. It's used in bullying and overall digital endangerment. Has many, many tactics. And I hope I shared something new today about how those tactics are always changing and what's emerging now and what's been old news. But help is here. And that's us working together and working again with you. Okay, so safety planning, whether it's cyberbullying, domestic violence, or perpetuating digital sexual assault or digital approaches to sexual assault. What to do online. Do not engage or respond. That is a recommendation. I agree with it. Bullying happens in this political world that we're in. There's lots of disagreements out there. No one is going to conform anyone online, so just don't engage. And that's from random arguing like the candle community. Okay, there's a candle community. There's arguments over there and death threats over the smell of like pumpkin spice versus lemongrass. Like, just don't engage or respond. In domestic violence and sexual assault, you can screenshot, you can track. Don't try to entrap them. Screenshot and don't respond. There is a difference between fake receipts and authentic receipts. As the development of prosecution and the justice system and bylaws and the changes with technology, stalking, and cybercrime, there is a way to differentiate at the end of the day if something is falsified or accurate. And that can go really advanced in the judicial process. But screenshot is okay for you to do. Just don't screenshot if you're engaging and responding, because that won't help you. Block the person, limit all communication, and their access to people. This may be very obvious, but it's possibly new to other people. Rallying the troops, rallying the community, rallying their tribe, getting as many people on board to retaliate and attack. The block button is gorgeous. Use it. Limit communication of that individual and their access people, because trolling is real. It's a real problem. Here again, I forgot I put that bullet there, but that's good. So screenshot and save harassing messages, forward them to your provider, app or site. These will never disappear. They're accessible by law enforcement forever. And again, a falsified receipt is easily identifiable by law enforcement. So if you're an advocate and working with a survivor and you keep everything right and tight, you keep your ducks in a row and everything's legitimate, do not fear those falsified documents, because it will come out in the process. It's really scary to see how easy it is to just hire 500 people to attack someone you don't like. It's really awful. Waiting for the page to load again. Okay, what do you do? How do you help a youth that is going through all of that, or a survivor who's going through their trauma? They're actively in their experience. We know how to be advocates. We know that there's professionals and survivors working in our field. But for those that are here learning, you are not alone, or it's powerful, powerful words, especially if someone is receiving, they're not from here. They live on the res, or they live in this community, but they're not from here and they don't really belong here. And that person is saying this person is an abuser, but that person, I've been raised with that person since I was a kid, and we're not going to have that person here anymore because they're disclosing violence. So you're not alone. It's really useful when people are getting to that point in the retaliation. We're here. There's specialized programming to help develop specific safety plans for each unique situation, and that goes across all of the isms. There's spiritualism. There's the isms against disabilities, the native LGBTQ Two-Spirit community. Lookism is big, all this lateral oppression-ism. And then there's the intersection when sex trafficking is intersecting with domestic violence, or the whole domestic violence wheel of approaches of how abuse is being conducted, down to what we're talking about today, which is digital abuse. There are people with specializations. It's okay to reach outside and into the network of advocates because we're broadening our own horizons and help when someone has a very unique intersection. They could be have a disability, be LGBTQ, not from their res. They may have a faith that's different than everyone else in the community. They could have childhood trauma. Just the intersections are there, and for that individual, an advocate that is new or hasn't been in the movement for 10 years and hasn't dealt with a lot of those intersections, we have to remind each other that we also are not alone, that we can reach out, and there are people that will not look down on you, that won't make fun or start whispering the mock gossip, moccasin trail behind your back because you asked for help. That's how the movement is violent. And we're emerging past that and really building allyships together, that it's okay to ask for help. And you're a bigger person for asking for help because it's only someone's life, right? You're an advocate helping someone. So it's okay to reach out and develop a specific safety plan that's needed, even if it's out of your own expertise. So one of the most important things to do also, prevention and education. The statistics on digital abuse in Native communities is minimal. We know everything's minimal. Everything's old, everything's limited. Even brand new reports don't accurately reflect the realities because of the reporting and the many reasons why the reporting just, they do the best that they can, but it's always, the statistics are as accurate as they can be. But the digital spaces can change every other month. Youth are the best mentors and advisors. I urge everyone that it may be the last bullet of what to do, but bring youth to the table should be everyone's number one bullet. If you're talking about youth, if you're talking to youth advocates, if you're going to schools, I have meetings. I know this material very well because of the work that I do, but I had youth meetings because I'm sharing their voice. And that's my responsibility to do so. So the action plan not getting caught in the web of digital abuse. So that's kitschy, that's silly, not getting caught in the World Wide Web. Wink, wink. So the action plan, we know that there's entrapment. That's real easy to do. We know that there are sex offenders online pretending to be 12, playing Minecraft or the new Borderlands 3, and they are spending money or playing the game a lot so they get the new skin, the new weapon, the new spell in those games, and they act like a young person, and they develop a conversational relationship, and all of a sudden they're going to hook them up with a new skin or a new item to use in the game and develop relationships, and that is being a predator and entrapping in the youth world, in their culture, in their gaming community. So entrapment is huge. Cyberbullying, we've been down this road, domestic violence and sexual assault and harassment. The way to get caught in the web. We want to prevent that. Grooming is just, I explained that through the entrapment bullet. Grooming happens at every age, by every age, to every age. It's not limited to what adults, what we know as grooming. Trafficking, phishing, again, doxing, smurfing, being clever, acting like you don't know what you know, or you aren't who you are, trying to get information. And if you can't get it, you fake it. You spend $2.99 and you fake a tweet. That's just the reality of where we are. But in our action plan, it means building a bridge between adults and youth with community discussions. You provide the mentoring and the leadership as a survivor or as an advocate, working with other adults, hearing national voices or from tribal advocate voices across the land and bringing it home and sharing. You offer that to youth, but the youth also has leadership, which is your greatest asset, the greatest asset. So I hope I didn't talk too fast. I get really into this work. So I'll just open it if there's any questions. If anyone has questions later or after, if it's reported and people are listening after the fact, I do welcome questions in the future. If you want more information or you'd like to have a youth event, I'm happy to do them, or just work with planning and brainstorming, think tanking on ideas for outreach and engagement. Or if you'd like a more precise, digging a little deeper into some of this content that's less comprehensive and more focused, I'm happy to help anyone who needs it. So with that, I'll pass it over to Hanobi, please.
Thank you, Rebecca. All right, so before we end this, I would like to remind everyone of the webinar next week, so that it will be September 30th on the Monday, and that will once again be at 1 p.m. And that will be legal considerations when providing advocacy to children and youth. And as of right now, that will be the last webinar in the Children and Youth series. So we hope to see you guys there. And with that, I would like to thank our presenter, Rebecca, our host, Anna from TATA, and those who joined us. And we hope to see you at the next webinar. Thank you all.
Thank you.